Hello and welcome to LT's Garage. Today I'm going to be showing you several projects using these paint stir sticks that I found on Amazon. I just really like these. They're a great thickness for crafting. They're not like regular paint sticks. They don't have those dips where the handles are on some paint sticks, and of course they don't have printing on them, which makes it great. You don't have to worry about sanding them or covering the print on them. They're not quite as wide as a jumbo craft stick, almost, but about almost the same width. But here is compared to a Dollar Tree wood ruler. They are almost 12 inches long. I'm going to be making a tree with this first one. I'm using just a piece of scrap wood. It's about a 1/2 inch square. And I'm going to cut it to about 20 inches long. I'm using just a saw and a miter box. So if you don't have a scrap piece that size, you can use, something a little bit different size. It just needs to be about 20 inches long for this particular tree that I'm making. You can also buy hobby wood at your craft stores that is similar to this. Of course, make sure you get it on sale because sometimes hobby wood can be kind of expensive. So I've also cut, as you can see, several pieces. I've cut different lengths of these sticks. I'll include the actual links that I use down below in my comments, along with a link to getting these craft paint sticks. I'm measuring up 2.5 inches on my 20-inch stick, and I'm using the ruler to measure up as well as to center my first stick, which I'm going to just hot glue on. Now, I had seen this particular tree at a store when I was visiting some family in Colorado, and I just thought it was really clever. I took a picture of it and have tried to duplicate it just based off the picture. So you can see I'm using the ruler. It's about 1.25 inches wide, and it just worked out to be the perfect size for spacing my wood pieces here. So, and it also helps me center those pieces as I'm going up. So I will include below, I'll link you to the pattern. I drew up a little pattern so that you can follow it if you want, or you can just kind of do your own thing with this basic idea. Like I said, I'm just copying it from a picture, so you can do something similar. So this is, I'm going to cut some pieces that go diagonal like I'm showing you. So first I'm going to flip this over and mark where those cuts need to be made. Each row or each level is going to be a little bit different of an angle. So you pretty much have to mark each one. And if you can get more than one out of a stick, that's great. So you saw how I just used that to measure. This is a cute little, just tiny miter box that I also found on Amazon. And it cuts through these. It has this little mini saw, and it's great for cutting through these paint sticks, as well as here I am cutting through a craft stick. I know a lot of people use scissors, but a lot of times using scissors, you're taking a chance of your craft stick cracking. Because these angles aren't 45-degree and that little miter box only has 45-degree angles, I'm just using a piece of scrap wood and sawing the angles that I marked with the pencil. It's really very easy to do. The saw is really small and light, and you just stick it on there and it saws right through these paint sticks really easily. So you can see that I've cut all my angled pieces. So now that I have all these angles cut, I'm going to show you how they lay out. On these top pieces, the corners are a little bit longer than the cross pieces, but that's just the way it works with those sharper angles that you have to make there at the top. So here is how it's going to lay out. I actually had to go back and do this part because I had lost the original footage, because I actually the one that I started doing for the video, I actually have all painted all the pieces before I glued them onto the trunk as I showed you before. So here's all my pieces. They're all painted. I used Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. I followed the same steps as I showed you on the raw wood one, where I used the ruler to space the different pieces. I chose to sand and antique all the edges on this one. I wanted them to have a little bit more of a rustic look. I used this folk art antiquing medium. Then the next step was to put words on my tree. And I chose to stencil mine. I cut some stencils using my vinyl cutter, and I chose to stencil rather than using the vinyl lettering because I want to be able to sand this a little bit and give it even more of a rustic feel. So I did teach this craft in a class, and for the class we used vinyl letters instead of stenciling. It just was a lot easier and less messy, but I chose to stencil mine. So here is how it looks when the words are all stenciled. You can see some of my scratches where I sanded through my words a little bit. I just think that this little zigzag tree is so clever, and it was something different that I hadn't seen before, and so I'm glad that I was able to experiment with it and share it with you. Really quickly, I need to show you how I made the stand so that your tree will stand up. I'm using this piece of scrap wood. Again, you could use what you have, or hobby wood if you have it, or want to purchase it. This is about 1/4 of an inch thick, and I'm cutting 3.5 inch long pieces and then cutting the corner at a 45-degree angle. I need 4 of these to make the stand for the tree. So I'm again using this cute little miter box. I just think that it's great, especially for most of the small projects and hobby wood and craft sticks that I use. So here is a small piece that is the same as my tree trunk. It's just a square, and what I do is I line up one of these angled pieces that I cut with a straight edge, and I glue it on. Then I take the next one and just butt it right up against the first one and the edge of my trunk. And I do the same thing with the next one, and just all 4 sides. And that way I have a leg going in each direction, and it makes that piece really sturdy and holds my tree up. So here's my tree on its stand. I know it's kind of hard to see with the star up in the camera like that. And here is the version of the tree that I taught in my class. You can see that the wording is a little bit different. We used these vinyl letters for the words joy, hope, Noel, peace, believe, and season's greetings. I actually have a few of these kits left over, and if you stick around to the end of the video, I will tell you how to get one for yourself for free. And here we go, immediately into tree number 2. I've used the same craft sticks that I used in tree number 1. I've cut them to different sizes, and I've added some red vinyl lettering. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. I also glittered a star, just one that I got in a package of stars from the craft store. I thought about outlining the slats in red like I'm practicing here, and decided against that. I decided I didn't like it. So because I had glittered the star, I decided that I would just do a little bit of glitter on the edges of all the slats. So just to kind of make it cohesive. And of course, you know, this tree's bright white and sparkly, completely different than that first tree I made, which was a lot more rustic. The star just came in a packet of stars that I got at the craft store. It had all different sizes, and I just pulled one out and painted it and put glitter all over it. So now just glittering the edges of these word slats. This idea for this tree came just from something I saw in a store, and I thought it was a cute idea, and I just took a picture and came home and kind of created my own little pattern for it. So you're seeing what I'm kind of making up as I go along, but here I'm using just a slat to space my tree pieces, but I'm also using a ruler to kind of make sure that I get my trunk centered and everything. Then I'm going to use this tape just to kind of keep everything steady, secure it so that it doesn't move. And then I'm going to string it all together with this red cord. I measured up half of it and then doubled it, wrapping some clear tape around my cord here and snipping it right in the middle of that tape so that the end of my cord is taped on my spool and on my project. Now I'm just gluing the cord together to make a loop. I didn't want to make a knot because I didn't want it to be bulky on the back of my star. So now I'm going to just start running this cord down. I'm just following the angles of the legs of the star, and then I'm going to start running it down all the slats. Again, I'll use an spare slat for my spacing. And then for running the cord down the sides of the slats, I'm just measuring in about a ½ an inch, and I'm just doing a straight line. Then I pull the cord over and I line it up with the top of that line, and then I make it go straight down. It kind of looks like a little bit like stair steps going down. Then when I get to this bottom slat, I'm going to just reinforce that corner a little bit and run the string towards the middle of that bottom slat. Do that on both sides here, and then I pull it down and glue it to my little tree trunk. Then I'm going to trim those ends, and I'll put plenty of hot glue on those just to keep them from fraying. So here is my cute little hanging tree. The original one that I saw was much more rustic, and I'm just going to show you really quick using just some of the smaller extra pieces that I have. A rustic version in an ornament size of this same style of tree. I'm just using a paint pen and writing the words on. And actually you could do this with any of the projects that I'm doing. If you don't have a vinyl cutter or stencils or whatever, you can just as easily write using a paint pen or painting the words on yourself. So here is my Joy to the World. I'm going to use some antiquing medium again and just a rag and rub antiquing on all the edges of all the pieces to this little ornament version of my tree. And then I'm just going to take a slightly damp cloth and rub that antiquing medium kind of all over the pieces to give them that kind of dingy, used, rustic look. Rustic is the word that we use, right? So much different than the bright white and glitter, but just super cute. I'm going to use a jute string to string this tree together, doing it the same way, making my loop, following the legs of the star, and then just stair-stepping the jute down to the trunk. And here we go. We have a cute little ornament version of that tree. One for the wall, one for the Christmas tree. Super fun. Okay, so here is tree 3. Now this one, I just had so many of these end pieces after the class I taught. I had all these little end angle pieces, and I thought, oh, what can I do with these? And so I played around a little bit and decided to make this little chevron patterned tree. And I'm sure you've seen pictures like this one from Pinterest with these wood slat trees. And you could make any of these trees with these wood slats like I'm doing. Just painting them different colors, cutting them different sizes. Here I just used 3 different greens that I had in my paint box, and of course the trunk is brown and the stand that I'm going to use is brown, and these are just all my elements. I decided to, after I painted all those pieces, I wanted it to look a little more rustic, so this one's going to be rustic as well. So I'm going to sand all the edges of all my pieces, and then give myself a clean surface to work with. So here's my trunk. It's just one of those paint sticks that I've painted brown. And now I'm going to just create, like I said, kind of a chevron pattern using the different colors of sticks. So I'm going to show you the wrong way to glue these strips on, which is what I'm doing. I started at the top and I thought, oh, I've got this, but it came out completely off center and looked really dorky. So I ended up having to take all those off and clean the glue off. Then I laid it upside down and actually found my center and glued the trunk on from the back so that it was centered. So now you have the advantage of my mistake. So for this tree stand, I just cut a couple of scrap wood pieces with angled ends, just using, again, a miter box and a saw. And I have this cute little tree. I did decide after I got to this point that it was just a little bit too clean and bright for me, and I decided to go back and antique it a little bit, again using my folk art antiquing gel and just brushing that gel into all those little crevices. And then I go back with a slightly damp rag and I just kind of rub it, and it coats each of those pieces, just gives it a little bit of it just kind of gives a nice tone to the whole tree, kind of harmonizes all those colors together and gives it that nice antique look. So I really, really liked the way this tree turned out. I'm really excited. It was something that I saw similar ideas, but nothing quite the same as this. A lot of them had, the angles were different and stuff. And so kind of came up with this one myself. So I really, really enjoyed it and think it's really cute. Okay, all the trees are done. Now we're going to move on to a fun snowman. I took 7 of these paint sticks / craft sticks and cut them in half. And I'm going to glue them together, just barely layering the edges and working to create a shutter, like the look of a window shutter. And I just am barely overlapping the edges and creating this window shutter look. So I'm going to just keep doing that with 13 of these pieces. And then I will then we'll build a frame around it to make it look even more like a window shutter that's just come off a window. Well, a mini version of a window shutter, I guess you could say. So here are my pieces. I'm going to take, the mini slats are all glued together. Now I'm going to take these long pieces and a couple of short pieces that I've measured to fit in between and make a frame. But I noticed when I tried to put the short pieces on the top and bottom that they were really wobbly, and just because of the way that the slats are layered, I took another small piece and you saw me score it there with an X-Acto knife and cut it in half so that I could just glue them on the edges of this top and bottom piece so that they wouldn't, so that they will be able to glue down to the shutter. Just because of the way that the wood is angled on the shutter, I needed to add those additional little pieces. So here I'm just gluing my frame together, the top and bottom pieces to the 2 side pieces. And once I've got that all glued together, then I'm going to just glue it to the slats. And voila, I have what looks like a window shutter. There you go. So now I'm going to paint my shutter to look like a snowman. This piece that I was just holding on there is going to be my snowman's hat brim. And so I just kind of used it to gauge how much of the shutter I want to paint white for the snowman. Now I'm going to use an actual craft stick. I just have one of these jumbo craft sticks. I like them because they're thin, and I was able to cut it real quick and then carve it a little bit using my X-Acto knife to look like a carrot for my snowman's nose. So for the hat brim, I just sanded off the corners of the craft stick that I'm using. Just sort of rounded them a little bit. And now I'm going to paint the snowman's hat portion of the shutter and paint this hat brim as well. So I'm going to set that aside for a second and try and make my carrot look a little bit more like a carrot. I'm just going to add some little lines here. And then I go back also with some antiquing and just touch those edges a little bit and make it look a little bit more like an organic carrot. Now I'm going to just real quick paint the other end of my hat brim. I pulled out this ribbon that I wanted to use for my snowman scarf, and I decided that the white was a little bit bright for me. Again, I'm into the rustic, obviously, since most of my projects I've used this antiquing medium on today. So I antiqued my snowman a little bit, and I feel like now he matches my ribbon a little bit better, or goes with my ribbon. I didn't want this wired edge on the ribbon, so I trimmed that off of both sides just to make it look more like a piece of fabric or a fabric scarf. After I had done this, I realized that my black hat portion of my snowman looked a little bit too clean and nice compared to the rustic white that I'd done. So I sanded my edges and added a little bit of antiquing to my black hat as well. So here's my hat brim, my organic carrot, and we're going to start gluing things together. Just a couple dots of glue. Just angle my little hat brim on there. I cut a couple circles out of some black paper just to kind of get some spacing. And here's my ribbon scarf. I'm going to paint my eyes on my snowman. Worked with those a little bit until I got them to where I kind of liked them. I'm gluing my scarf in place. I also fringed the ends of that ribbon. Didn't get it on video, but hopefully you'll see it here when it's hanging up. I'm going to place the carrot, and now I'm going to use the bottom of or is it the top of the paintbrush to dip in the black paint and dot my snowman smile. Now for a couple of final touches, I have this little 99-cent pick from Hobby Lobby that was 50% off. So I am kind of tearing off a few holly leaves and the pine cone and berries and gluing them on to the brim of my snowman's hat. And here he is. Isn't he adorable? I think he turned out just great. Here is the inspiration. That was from Hobby Lobby, and here's my guy again. Here is my cute little chevron pattern tree. My hanging, have yourself a merry little Christmas and joy to the world ornament. Here is the zigzag tree. And here is the one that I have kits for, and you could get one for free. Just follow me on Facebook at LT's Garage or on Instagram at LTS_garage. And when this video hits 100 views, go ahead and tell me what you liked about the video, and I will enter you to win one of 3 kits for the zigzag tree. See you soon.